Testing. 1, 2, testing. 1, 2. Yeah, this is recording for my first podcast here. You understand? And I wanted to do this podcast for a very, very, very long time, And this podcast, the introduction to this podcast, if you don't know, is going to all be about me talking about different issues, hot topics, so they say, about all the bacchanal confusion, old nigger commerce that going on in the beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago, which was given emancipation in 1962. Anybody that knows me knows this is the real man talking here. This is Warren, a.k.a. Sonny C, or for the real old-timers, Flappers. The boy Flappers has a podcast. Yes, he does. He's jumped out in the game. He's got a little podcast. He's not playing no games with you blackhead chicken. You African children anymore, And I want to talk about the whole this madness of COVID-19, cabin fever, hell. Nobody can go nowhere. Nobody can do nothing. Nobody can cut a little flick with a bird. Well, I don't think they closed the houses of ill repute. You understand? The places that some people, not myself, consider places of enjoyment. Late night enjoyment. So that you can get some, as they say, a tryst with a woman of foreign descent that happens to speak the language of Spanish. So we here, we trapped, we can't go nowhere. They ain't letting we go nowhere. We contained, we in this prison, this jail called COVID-19, and there's really nowhere to go. And it's really getting disgusting, you know what I mean? People had to play mind games and tricks with the mind and all kind of things like that. And, I'm sitting here, recording this first episode for the first podcast. And what really inspired me to write this podcast was because, I always wanted to get into something like Celestial Radio or something like that. Maybe the Boom Champions, maybe somebody like Slam, or one of those big known entities, so to speak, And I seen, me personally, that everybody else was having a little podcast. Everybody else was doing that little thing. And I say, hold up. I say, yeah. I say, I just download this app, this app from the internet that allow me to record my voice and throw up a podcast. Because for those who don't know, a podcast is just you talking on the recording device with a mic, and then you fix it up, you set it up, and you throw it out to the world, so to speak. You understand? And it's what I'm finna do, fixing to do, if we're talking grammatical correctness, out there. You know what I mean? And hopefully, very soon, because I was talking about the podcast and I was sending it out. By the way, this podcast will be at least, for the least, 20 minutes. I think I could cut 20 minutes in our podcast, just starting off, getting my feet wet, bathing this whole podcasticity that's going on here now, trying to understand the game, the rules, the parameters, so they say, of the podcast game. And I understand you could make a little money off of that, so I'll be definitely investigating that part of the game. Now, to ask all the questions about who is this man talking all this shit on this podcast that I hear in here. Well, put your weed blunts down for 15 seconds. Put the ganja to this. Now smoke the ganja because, most of the time, is the healing of the nation. And I think that should be one of the topics that I want to talk about. Marijuana and Trinidad and Tobago. Should weed be legal or illegal I say, what's the big deal? What is the big deal with the weed? We had all this crime going on, all this bacchanal and confusion. A young, innocent, bright, aspiring young woman was kidnapped. 2 were kidnapped. There was a young woman by the name of Andrea, may she rest in perfect peace, and Ashanti, may she also rest in perfect peace. I wasn't able to find neither one. Neither one, they wasn't able to find them, and they passed away. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago are upset about this, as they should be. As they should be. Because too much times, these young women have been disappearing, vanishing in this country. And nobody can seem to find none of them. Nobody ain't had no answers. Nobody ain't know what's going on. Nobody ain't know one shit about the young girls from the normal society, the 99%. Yeah, go in there. If you know me, you know I go in there. The 99%, right? But let somebody from a prominent family disappear and they would find her ass in 2.9 seconds. Let me tell you that. They would find her with immediate effect and extreme fucking prejudice. They would find her quick like that. It would be no stick. It would be no hesitation. They're kicking down door. They're beating who they have to beat down to the ground. They're not playing no games. They're not playing no old talk. They're getting that girl back so fast and make your head spin to the point you wonder, she was ever really missing? She was ever really missing? They find her. Just like that. But 2 young, aspiring young women who, for what we know, were extremely good human beings and did not deserve the death that they got, couldn't be found. Oh no, they didn't come from prominent families. They didn't come from that. They were taken out. They were gone, so to speak. You understand? Who's to blame? Is it the police? Is it society? Is it just a case where crime prevails? What's to blame? Who's to blame? And in saying that, we walked on a very slimy, sticky road. But what we do know is that we, as Trinidadians, and the government particularly of Trinidad, has to do better than this. They have to do better than this. It can't be that every time somebody of normal rank of Trinidad, the 99%, so to speak, their children go missing, it's almost a certainty that they won't be found. We talking about the kidnapping, and yes, it was a horrible thing that should never have been allowed. There's girls I've gone to school with, right? I'm not going to call no names. There's girls I went to school with who are terrified right now. They don't feel safe. And these girls weren't no punks. They was fighters, battlers, and warlords. I would know. But what I'm trying to say is that even the most brave, hardened females in Trinidad and Tobago, the ones who you think not afraid of nothing, you understand? They are scared out of their minds now. All of these women are scared out of their minds. Men who have daughters, what's their story? What's their predicament? You understand? They rightfully have a right to be scared out here. They rightfully have a right to be terrified out here for the little girls, for the girl children, for even sometimes the boy children. I believe, and I'm just saying this, I just throwing this out, I have no proof, that there is a human trafficking ring that is operating in the beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, there is. There's people who are operating a human trafficking ring. This is not the first time we heard these things, but now, right now, I strongly believe it to be so. I strongly believe it to be so. There's teachers that I went to school with that taught me that have daughters that probably their greatest nightmare is to wake up one day and your girl child missing. Nobody know where she is. Nobody know where she gone. But everybody know that she not there, she missing, she can't be found, you understand? And a lot of them is totally Trinidad is in a mess. It's in a mess. It's in a complete, total mess. You understand? And COVID-19 didn't put Trinidad and Tobago in a mess. Trinidad was in a mess for a very long time. It was in a very long time. Now, I'm not somebody that advocates so much so for the death penalty, so to speak, because if we remember history, we had done the death penalty years ago with a prominent drug lord by the name of Dole Chedi. And Dole Chedi's gang was hung for a crime that was similar to what we see going on now. And I believe was the beginning or the precursor for the crime that we see in Trinidad today. But even the most heinous criminals of Trinidad and Tobago, the real guntas, bad boys, killers, top shotters, however you pronounce yourself, today, I don't believe had anything to do with what we saw happen with those two girls. And I believe eventually they might get blamed for it, because it's easier to blame somebody from those kind of areas, those hotspots for crimes like this. They've been blaming them for everything for the longest. But is it that every time something like this happens, we're going to blame the poor, or as they would say, the goons, that they did that, when there's some of them that they themselves have daughters, they themselves have nieces, they themselves have girl children, and possibly found this act to be the most heinous act in Trinidad and Tobago history that we saw, that a young aspiring, I believe she was a clerk working in I think in the magistrate court. She was a clerk, which is a good job. She was a young girl. She had a whole life ahead of her. Both her and Ashanti had their whole lives ahead of them. You know what I mean? They were bright, and they did not deserve what they got. And I think that the deaths of these two women will be the beginning of Trinidadians finally standing up to what they perceive is a non-active government, and it's nothing against people who support either the PNM or the UNC, but we have to look beyond just politics, right? We have to look beyond just politics, and we have to look beyond, and we have to look to people, to the future of our children. Because at the end of the day, they're safe. Them down in rich areas. I mean, there's a certain politician, he was busting AR-15s and things like they was in a Rambo movie. I mean, it was Rambo style, you understand? But if my black ass had been caught with a pea shooter, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I would be shitting on Gazette paper with a bail so high that my mother and father couldn't pay. That, let me tell you, as we know this to be true. So is it that is law for some and not for others? Is it that the law applies to certain people but not to everybody in the country of Trinidad and Tobago? Is it that it only applies to people from the lower aspera of society, as I say, the 99%, whereas the 1%, yes, I'm calling them out, the 1%, we've known about this group for years, because 1%, and I want to say this here on this podcast now, 1% is not only it is not only Syrian Lebanese. There's a lot of black 1%, Indian 1%. 1% really means the higher rich of society that uses their wealth to keep the other 99% down while keeping them all the way turned up, as they say in the Fat Joe song. So no one else must have anything. They alone must have everything. And I think that's one of the major causes of poverty, crime in the inner city areas, be it the Laventille, the Beetham, the Mova, all these places. These people who come from these areas, these people are not just diseased, evil creatures that will just eat you the minute they see you. That's a lie. That's what we've been told and taught. But that's not the truth. I went to school with a lot of them, knew them personally. Even to this day, they'll be surprised I'm doing the podcast. But they are not the problem. They are not the problem. They are the precursors of the problem. Because we cannot have a country that, I mean, if you look at the jails of Trinidad and Tobago, if BBC ever came here, we would be on the national stage for crimes against humanity. You understand? The reason, and I've said this before, I think they should legalize marijuana. I'm telling you all this, all my listeners who listen to this podcast. I think personally they should legalize the weed, because if they legalize marijuana, it would throw out a lot of case files in the judiciary. It would get rid of all of them. They need to purge the judiciary. They need to. All these little jackass crimes they have people there for, these petty crimes are just taking up space. Just clean them out. Release those boys that you lock up for a little spliff of weed, and you had them languishing in the jail for 2 years. 2 years you have them languishing in the jail. And then on top of that, they learn no skills, they learn no trades. In American jail, when they lock up in an American jail, so, one of those Yankee incarceration camps, be it Sing Sing, be it Green Haven, any of those jails, when they are put in those places, in those jails, not only do they learn skills, they learn trades, they learn all kind of things. So if they go back to crime, brother man, that was on you. But in Trinidad jails, in the West Indian jail system, there's none of that. We lock you up, we torture you. You learn nothing, but don't let me catch your ass out there doing anything else. And some of these guys have families. Some of these guys have kids to support. Some of these guys have these things to deal with. So when you're talking all this foolishness about they must behave themselves. So do you know the kind of hell some of them catch on a day-to-day basis? This has always been a battle in this country between those who were highly in the upper crust and the ordinary. Now, the ordinary people are suffering and see that suffering at the hands of the upper crust. The upper crust would tell you, quite honestly, even if they see this, we gain them jobs, we gain them a work, we gain them employment. What else they want is we who put them on. So what the ass they could want, we put them on a job, we give them a work. You understand? What the ass they want. Well, what they want, sir, honestly, it's a fair shake of being part of the society that they are living in. They don't want your blood and they don't want your job that can't pay to mind the children, that can't pay to mind a piper on the stand and support his drug addiction. The kind of pay that you all give people, that you all boast about, is insane. It's ridiculous and it's insipid and it's unconscionable how these people live with themselves. But in the end, we all answer to God. And if you are a student of history in Trinidad, there's been times when a lot of prominent businessmen, strangely enough, get hit with all kind of torturous diseases and all kind of things, and they can't cure them, because how you live is how you will have to answer. You understand? I learned that from a Rastafari who I had known, all right, who had, taken me under the wing and taught me the certain ways of how they live as Rastafarians and things like that. And getting to know them, I realized they are not the bad people that I was taught to. So as I went out in the world and discovered different things about different people, I learned that these people you talk about in the ghetto, in those areas, are not the demons, not the monsters, not the satanic creatures that we were led as young people to believe. They're actually just people who need some help, and they need the help from the government that they put there. You understand? They just get up early to vote. I from Trin City, I don't get up to vote until the sun in the middle of the sky. I don't get up until noon to vote. You understand what I'm showing you? So I say this with all honesty, Trinidad and Tobago, we need to do better. We can do better, and we have to do better in this country that we live in and we were born in. We as a people used to be beautiful. We used to be amazing. We were talented. You're talking about places like Laventille. Laventille, which means the vent. It's a French name. They forget about men like Spree Simon. He was the man that invented the steel pan. That was invented in Laventille. Some of the most beautiful landscapes in Trinidad and Tobago are from places like Laventille. I don't want to sound like a caping for them, but the truth is the truth, and a fact will always be a fact. You understand what I'm telling you? So what they need is support. They don't need bashing. They need support, real support. You understand? Everything that's going on, they need a help. They need real help. They don't need people bashing them, attacking them, saying they ain't worth nothing and they have no value when they have all the value. You understand? They have value and they're worth something. But all they need and all they've ever wanted and needed was a chance and an opportunity to show that worth, to show that they're worth something, to show that they could amount to something if given the opportunity, if given the chance. And that is what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. It doesn't have to, it's not that they are born, because no one is born a criminal. No one is born a criminal. We become criminals through the situations that sometimes are thrown in, be it economical situations, sometimes be it fate. There's people who I know who weren't criminals. They get thrown in a prison situation for a stick of weed, and by the time you come out there, you're a hardened killer, you know to sell drugs, you know to take a life, you know you're probably toting some souls, in the jail system, you know how it is, you understand? But your mind has been snapped. You are no longer the innocent person you was. It took you, somebody who had no criminal experience, and turned you into a complete murdering psychopath. That's what the jail system of Trinidad and Tobago does. That's what they do. You understand? It's not about rehabilitation. It's about punishment. That's what it's all about. And that's all it's ever been about. It's never been about changing these people's lives and turning them into better humans in society. It's about torturing them. That's what it's all about. It's about having them shit on Gaza people, being away from their family. You understand? The woman outside there, they had kids 2 years and then she gone astray, and who knows what happened to her, who knows what happened to the children, but they don't care because it's not their children. You understand? It's not their kids. You understand what I'm showing you? Now, if marijuana, weed, was legal in the state of Trinidad and Tobago, here's some of the things it could do. One, like Amsterdam before it, Amsterdam was a country that legalized weed and now is one of the best tourist stops in the world. Everybody wants to go to Amsterdam. They make movies about Amsterdam. This is fact. This is not fiction I'm talking about here. It could also create a lot of jobs for the youth. They already know how to grow it, manufacture it, and deal with it when they was dealing with it on the black market. Now bring those people in to the market of society. Because everybody smokes weed, everybody deals with it. So in bringing it into society, bringing it into the forefront, it would not only decrease the crime in Trinidad and Tobago, but it could also be taxed like any other commodity. It could be governmentally taxed like any other commodity. And it would add to the country's financial situation. There's a lot of things that people say that you can do with marijuana. I don't know. This is what I'm hearing about. But what I do know you can do with marijuana for sure, is smoke it. And the people who smoke marijuana now, because it is legal, wouldn't have to worry about three things. First thing, they could use it as a way to feed the family, as a cash crop. They could use it, the government could use it as a cash commodity, like how we was using oil before the great COVID came and slashed everybody down. And oil, I believe, will not be used in the next 10 years down the line. Trinidad and Tobago, the economical landscape of the world changing. That is another podcast for another story. But with it being legal, I think that the weight of crime in this country will go down, because it's only creating crime because it is illegal. But if it was legal, then the crime stigma of marijuana and marijuana smokers would no longer be there. You understand? So it wouldn't be this great terror that going on anymore. It wouldn't be this horror of, oh God, it's weed and yada yada yada. It would be done. It would be gone. And by then, now, the weed and the whole thing what they're talking about, all of that would be over. And now what we would have is a country that can use the marijuana tree, marijuana stick, the marijuana whole thing. They can use that now as something that can attract foreign income, because the Yankees love to smoke weed also. And we can use that to bring in not only foreign investors in Trinidad and Tobago, but they could also bring in foreign income to Trinidad and Tobago. That's just from the money standpoint. For the youths, it would take all of them off the street. It would take all of them off, because they could just be weed planters and they could do that, but they would pay a tax to the government, and then not only would the government get their slice, but they would also be able to do something that, frankly, a lot of them love to do. You understand? And it would change the entire landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. But I suspect that certain powerful businessmen would want that because they themselves are already involved in it, and it make more money illegal than legal. Just like alcohol in the times of prohibition, Trinidad and Tobago is still going through a marijuana prohibition. You understand? And I would never understand why they say it's dangerous when alcohol, which is legal, has caused more murders and fatalities on the road than marijuana ever has. I would never understand why tobacco is legal when it's been scientifically proven tobacco is more dangerous for your health than marijuana. But continue. Now, what it would also do for the police, it would alleviate a lot of their caseload. It really would, because most of the crimes they get in now is based on weed. Most of them locking up little weed smokers and men who selling weed. Come on, let's be real. You understand? You get a murder case every now and again. And most of the time, it's caused because of the marijuana trafficking. Now, if that's legal now, there'd be no need to kill a boy for the marijuana. There'd be no reason for it anymore. Why? Because it is finally legal. You look at the religious standpoint, most Rastafarians see it as a holy herb. The fact that we have it illegal here could be perceived as religious discrimination to some people who could make that case. Now, this is the first podcast that I'm ever really doing. This is one of the first. I'll do a podcast maybe every week or every now and again. When I get a chance to do a podcast, I'll do a podcast, right? But what I'm talking about with this whole situation in Trinidad is that the problems that go on in this country must be solved. It cannot continue the way it is continuing, because as bad as that murder was and still is, if we don't stand together as a people now, united in a united front, there's going to be more of that. And it's going to be worse and worse and worse as it goes down the line. We need to bring Trinidad back to what it was when we were cheering. If you could remember how good it was the greatest country and greatest show on earth. I don't care what nobody say about American, this and that, and ting. About Trinity to the bone. This is where I was born, and this is where I love. You understand? Nowhere in Brooklyn you can find some of the affluence that you find in Trinidad and Tobago. There's nowhere in America you could find that. The women of Trinidad and Tobago are some of the most drop-dead gorgeous you will ever meet in your life, which would probably be the subject of my next podcast, episode 2, right? Which will talk more about the whole Venezuelan situation. I'll touch on that a little bit because, a lot of people, they go in these houses of ill repute. You understand? I'm not bashing them for that because, boy, I've had my time. But I think that the hate and the comparing the women of Trinidad with Venezuela, I think that's what causes a lot of the drama and the confusion. You can't compare a black woman to any woman on the earth. They really are the soil of the earth. You understand? The black woman is queen. Let's not confuse ourselves with that. All of us mostly came. Every great man at one point was in the womb of a woman, right? And to compare one with the other is insane. It makes no sense. So we need to stop that bullshit right there. I coming out and saying that. We need to stop that. And hopefully that will be the topic of my next podcast, which is episode 2. Which will be coming out hopefully sometime next week or anything like that. Life going on, work, all this kind of thing. So I got a chance to really record this podcast here as the introduction podcast, or episode 1 of the new series, The King's Throne Room. You understand? Because as we know, black men are king, and I'm talking to you from the throne room, so I have to keep it all the way real with the rest of my black kings and queens out there, because black people are royalty. Never slaves, always royalty. We've always been royalty. We always will be royalty. The slave trade could not stop that. We have fought against too much, and we will continue to fight against the wrongs that anyone brings towards us. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for my first podcast. Give me any kind of suggestions or things you thought I could have done better or anything like that. I'm here to learn. I'm here to improve. You understand? With that being said, to all my black kings out there, keep your head up, Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself out of the penitentiary. And to my black queens, keep yourself safe out there. You know you're very much precious and you are appreciated. Thank you. Bless.